President Obama has wrapped up a meeting with America's most powerful allies. The two-day NATO Summit discussed several of the most important issues facing the world today. Front and center, the future of the war in Afghanistan. Joining us from Washington is CBS News Military Analyst, Colonel Jeff McCauseland. Jeff, good morning to you.
Terrell, it's good to be with you.
Good to be with you as well. NATO endorsed an exit strategy from Afghanistan, most of those troops being pulled out of the country by the end of 2014. When you think of immediate consequences, what comes to mind?
Well, first of all, is that commitment, not only by the alliance to stay with the strategy to 2014, but the commitment beyond that to support the training of Afghan security forces financially beyond 2014. You know, that right now is costing about $6 billion a year, with the United States bearing about 90% of that burden. I know President Obama was seeking to bring down the overall cost to about $4 billion, the U.S. contribution hopefully being about $2.5 billion. And then he wants to see the NATO allies and others take up more of those responsibilities in that period beyond 2014.
You just mentioned the cost of the plan on the table, about $4.1 billion a year, the U.S. footing most of that bill. Is this something that NATO can afford?
Well, clearly there is hope that they can do that, and of course all the allies, I think, have made commitments with that in mind. But that being said, we know that there are serious economic problems in many of the countries across Western Europe, a real possibility that that economic situation might in fact worsen. So it remains to be seen whether or not this commitment can be delivered. Also, the Obama administration is very interested that the NATO allies, as they pull out their combat troops, will leave a large number of trainers in Afghanistan to assist the United States in the continued training, organizing, and equipping of Afghan security forces after 2014.
The President acknowledged there could be some dark days, bad days to come in Afghanistan in the midst of this transition. What will Afghanistan look like post-2014?
Well, I think post-2014, we hope to see the Afghan security forces in the lead, providing hopefully security throughout most of the country. Afghanistan will still be a very economically deprived place, likely a very violent place as well. Probably around, I hear from people in the Pentagon, some numbers of roughly 20,000 Americans still in the country providing training and logistical support to Afghan security forces. Some presence as well of special operations forces in Afghanistan if they are needed for continued attacks beyond 2014.
Let's talk about those critical supply routes that NATO needs from Pakistan into Afghanistan to support troops. Those supply routes still closed at this hour. What is the hope of getting them back open?
Well, you know, those supply routes are very critical to the United States and NATO. About 40% of our non-lethal supplies would transit those routes in the coming last several years. They were closed in November after a very serious fight between Pakistani forces and American forces along the border resulted in the killing of 24 Pakistani soldiers. Obviously a terrible accident incident. Pakistani parliament closed those supply routes down. There had been hopes that there would be an announcement that they would be reopened during the summit. President Zardari of Pakistan has come to Chicago for the summit, but it appears the deal has never been made. President Obama won't even be meeting with Zardari while he is in Chicago. Hopefully this deal will be made later on and those valuable supply lines opened up in the next couple of weeks and months.
I know you've heard maybe signs of a bigger problem to come. A suicide bomber attacked in Yemen Monday. 96 soldiers were killed there. President Obama said he has been worried about al-Qaeda's presence in that country. What is going to happen next? Is this a sign that al-Qaeda is moving out of established territory and maybe gaining strength elsewhere?
What we're seeing is other al-Qaeda groups springing up around the globe, unfortunately. You know, the al-Qaeda in the Arab Peninsula that's based in Yemen has now become one of the greatest threats to the United States. This is where the so-called underwear bomber who tried to bring down a plane over Detroit on Christmas Eve several years ago, the effort to put explosives in printer cartridges and ship them to Chicago inside cargo aircraft, and most recently another attempt by an underwear bomber, all those things emanated from Yemen and al-Qaeda in the Arab Peninsula, and an affiliate of al-Qaeda that had been led by Osama bin Laden. And we've seen a growing strength of this element in Yemen. They actually control some territory in the south of Yemen, probably hundreds of fighters. The United States has provided advisor support and drone attacks to the Yemeni military. There's been large-scale political unrest in Yemen. We know the president of Yemen for many, many years, President Saleh, recently departed the country, and his vice president, President Hada, now has taken control. So clearly there was a statement being made by al-Qaeda in the Arab Peninsula with this attack, killing those 90-plus soldiers, injuring hundreds more in response to what they believe were offensive by the United States and Yemeni forces against their strongholds in the southern part of the country.
Colonel Jeff McCauseland, CBS News Military Analyst, joining us from Washington this morning. Jeff, thank you so much.
Terrell, it's been a pleasure.